Well, hey, thank you for joining us this morning. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This is going to be fun. My name is Scott Brazelton. Uh, yeah, quick bio if you want one. About to hit 20 in the Navy in a couple months, just doing a reservist gig now. I'm in command of a small unit down here in Colorado, but yeah, naval aviator for the majority of my career. So I trained in T6, T6s, T45s, flew the EA-18 Growler for the majority of my career, where I ended instructing there. So majority of my career doing that, couple thousand hours in that airplane. Flew the Navy C-40 for 3 years. After that, I got hired by Southwest Airlines, and
Nice.
not smart enough to know how to fly two airplanes at the same time. I didn't want to instruct in Super Hornets and stay current on that part time and fly for Southwest at the same time. So I figured, hey, if I can just stick to the 737, I might be a half decent pilot. So um, yeah, so I did C-40s for 3 years, and I gave that up a couple years ago. And now I live in Colorado. I run a small Navy unit that's at Buckley here in Colorado, and my full time job is I'm a pilot for Southwest. So kind of a down and dirty.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, so what made we'll just start at the beginning. What made you want to join the Navy, become a naval aviator? What did that path look like?
Man, probably similar to a lot of guys. You know, I was 10 and this movie called Top Gun came out. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but pretty good movie. Uh, yeah, my dad brought it home and I watched it and I was just like, oh my God, this is, it's back when you had to rent videos on VHS and all that. I just knew from
Blockbuster.
that minute. Yeah, I watched it that night, and I remember watching it twice the next day before he had to take it back to the video store. And I don't even know how many times I rented it. But ever since then, I was buying model airplanes and getting doing a terrible job putting them together and getting glue all over myself and paint and yeah, knew from that minute that I wanted to be a naval aviator. So I was lucky that I knew what I wanted to do early.
Good stuff. So,
Yeah.
and then like stepping up into it, you joined the Navy. What did the training pipeline look like? How did you end up in growlers over all the other options?
Yeah, good question, man. So I for it was not easy getting in to naval aviation as a pipeline. I got turned down 4 times before they finally said yes. So it was a ridiculous process of like just trying to get better and better and better and keep reapplying. And I think finally they got tired of me and they said, Jesus, just let this guy in till he quits bothering us. Um, but yeah, I had a fairly unique path to get to where I got. In that I did training with the Air Force to to there was like an exchange program. So I joined, I got a commission, and then they sent some Navy pilots to the Air Force and some Air Force pilots to the Navy. So they sent me to actually train with the Air Force for 6 months. That's when I flew T6s. Graduated top of my class there, so I got to pick what I wanted to do. Did I want to do helicopters or P3s, or at that point it was just called the tailhook pipeline. So at that point I selected tailhook, and that meant that I was going to fly something that landed on a carrier. Didn't know what. It could have been an E2 Hawkeye, C2 Greyhound. At the time, the Prowler, Legacy Hornet, Super Hornet, Growler, all that. So I did that, and then about 10 months into that training, they if you do well, they break out the TAC Air guys from E2 E2 C2. So I got to that point and then got selected for TAC Air. So that meant that I was going to fly Legacy Hornets, Super Hornets, or Growlers. And I was born and raised in Washington State, and was from there. And I really liked the Growler, the platform, brand new shiny airplane at the time. So I uh, got lucky and chose that, and kind of went up there to do that. So
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
what made the Growler special to you? I don't know a whole lot about the electronic warfare side and all that. So I mean, within bounds, of course.
sure. Oh yeah. You guys can ask me anything. No big deal.
Oh, oh, okay.
I'm just gonna kill my kids. I'm just gonna kill them.
Get it.
Anyways, yeah. So okay. So at the time, when I was going through training, brand new airplane, brand new. 2008 is when the first one rolled off the production line.
Okay.
And it's just a really really cool mission. It's a mission that we are always doing, always. So we may not be using kinetics, at any given point in time, but we are always um, doing things that involve the electromagnetic spectrum, whether we're collecting or what have you. So and also it is the absolute tip of the spear. Before any bombers or anything can go into a country, just given a random conflict, we have to suppress enemy air defenses. So we can't put anything over that country unless we suppress enemy air defenses, and that's the primary mission of the Growler: suppression of enemy air defenses. So we are literally the tip of the spear. It's our job to protect everyone else, and to make sure that we get rid of all that stuff on the ground. So
That sounds really interesting. I mean, and I've had a little bit of interaction on the ground side, but that's just, hey, magic stuff is happening, and wow, my life is easier.
yeah, and it's not just that. So it's like it's a Super Hornet with a bunch of stuff in it. So what differences are there? So we don't have a gun. In place in the gun bay, there's a bunch of supercomputers that process stuff. We have sensors on the wingtips, but we still can carry everything that a Super Hornet can carry. So we still carry AMRAAM. We still carry, we carry harm. And it is a Super Hornet. So it reads and knows every bomb you put on it and everything like that. So it's really, really multi-role, which is also kind of cool. So
So going back a little bit more, how'd you get your call sign? I love asking every pilot that.
oh
It's
man,
always a good
I'm not gonna
story.
be I'm not gonna be invited back here after I tell this story. Um, well, first of all, little for those of you guys that don't know, um, Navy call signs are never, Maverick, Viper, Snake. It's nothing cool ever. It's either it makes fun of your last name or makes fun of you in some way, or you screwed something up. Uh, I'll tell you, I actually had two call signs, and they're both about equally embarrassing. I'll tell you the quick one first. So my first, when I was in the T6, this was a brand new airplane in Enid, Oklahoma. And when you have to go to the bathroom in the airplane, they have this thing called a piddle pack, and it's basically like an elongated Ziploc bag, and it has this powder in the bottom that absorbs any liquids and turns it into a solid. Um, and But you have to like unfold the thing, and it has like a zip tie, like a tie at the top. And when you're flying, you wear all this flight gear. You got survival gear, flotation. I mean, you walk out to the airplane with 50 pounds of shit all over you. Sorry, can I curse? I don't
Yeah,
know.
you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
Okay. Okay. All right. And so I drank a ton of water before this aerobatic flight when I was a student, and it can help with G's and everything like that. And we get up there, and I tell my instructor, who's in the back of the airplane, this is the T6. I said, "Hey, man, I really got to go to the bathroom. Like, sorry, can you fly?" And he says, "Sure." And it's a little embarrassing because it's only a 40-minute flight, and I think we were going up to do spins or something like that. And it's my first time opening and using a piddle pack, so I try to figure it out with all this flight gear in the way and everything else. And I open the piddle pack up. And I start going, and about 30 seconds in, I just hear this screaming from the back of the airplane. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? And he says, there's piss running all down the floor. And I looked down and I wasn't peeing in the thing. I was peeing in a fold. Like I hadn't opened it up all the way. And so there's like, sorry, this is too gross, but there's like urine running all around his boots. And I was like, oh man. And I emptied my whole bladder onto the floor of that brand new airplane. And he's just like absolutely in disbelief. So he's like, we got to go back. So we start to go back and we start descending, and smoke starts billowing into the cockpit. So this is now like a no shit emergency because we have smoke and fumes in the cockpit. And then we start to lose our DDIs. So we both lose our bottom DDIs, and our fuel display goes away and all sorts of stuff. And we've done the emergency action items for smoke in the cockpit. We declare an emergency. We land in Enid, Vance Air Force Base, open the SAFAR ejection seats, open the cockpit, smoke's pouring out. Fire trucks are all there on the runway. It's probably 4 or 5 fire trucks. And I climb out of the airplane, and there's just piss all down my flight suit. And I'm about as embarrassed as I can possibly be. And turns out that it was about $450,000 worth of damage to that airplane. And so military, I mean, it was a mistake. I didn't do it on purpose. Everyone laughed at me. But then they called me Flomax from that point on. So that was the first call. If I'm droning on too long, let me know. That was my first call sign. Second one, I'll make it.
You want to spend?
All right. So second call sign. This is when I was in the Growler with my fleet squadron, and I was there for 6 months. I hadn't had a call sign, so I was like, hell yeah, I'm doing this right. I haven't done anything stupid. Well, we were doing a detachment down to Nellis Air Force Base for Red Flag, and we were going to get to Vegas early, and they were putting us up on the strip. So we were like, cool. We have 3 days that we could like have our spouses down and hang out. And so we were all excited. And about Thursday, my wife says, like, Scott, like, we're spending the weekend in Vegas. You're pasty white. We should go tanning. And I was like, no, I'm not going to go tanning. That's ridiculous. She's like, well, it'll make you look better. You look more tan, but like, come on, we're going to be at the pool in Vegas. I say, okay, fine. So I go to the tanning salon, and it turns out her and I weren't on the same page. I thought she meant tanning bed. She meant tanning booth, one of those spray booth things.
Yeah.
And I was like, hell no, I'm not getting a spray tan. That's ridiculous. And the girl at the counter is like, you don't understand. Like, you barely be able to tell. We'll put you on like a level 1. And you're not even going to be able to notice. It's just going to give you this really nice glow. Like, she's like, no one will even really, really notice, but you'll look really good. And I was like, oh God, all right, fine. So she tells me, you got to get in this booth. You got to put your hands up and down and all this stuff. So she says to my wife and I, she says, yeah, go in room 3 and 4. So we go in the room and we do the thing. And and it takes like 4 hours to set in. And on the drive home, like, my skin starts itching. And my wife tells me, she's like, this is really weird. She's like, I asked for like this tingler stuff that makes your skin hot in mine, but I'm not feeling that at all. But she said, you are? And I was like, yeah. Well, turns out on the drive home, we realized that my level 1 got mixed up with her level 4. So the lady said, go in rooms 3 and 4. And we got the rooms mixed up. And my wife's darker skinned than I am. So I'm like, oh shit. And I'm a pretty white guy. Well, that day, when we flew down my flight to Nellis was in 4 hours. And we flew in the C-40. The airplanes met us there. I was junior at the time, so I didn't fly an airplane down. So over the course of that flight to Nellis, I went from like the pigment that I am now to like that of a carrot. And I'm in my military uniform. And I go down the air stairs, and my commanding officer and XO are down there. And my XO just grabs me by the arm. And he's like, what the fuck happened to you? And I was like, I went spray tanning. He said, you went spray tanning? And he said, "You look absolutely fucking ridiculous." He's like, you aren't going to show up." Like, and I was in front of all my sailors and everything. I felt like a total dumbass. He said, "You are not showing up tomorrow." He's like, "You are grounded until you quit looking like a clown." He's like, "I don't want anyone else from any other squadron to see you till you get this shit off your skin." So I was like, "Oh man, this is great." So I Google how to get rid of a spray tan. And there's all sorts of home remedies. There's like tomato paste and vinegar and mineral oil and all this crap. I mean, it's like in your skin.
You got
So
sprayed
that
by
night,
a skunk, right?
yeah. So that night, I spent like $270 at Walmart on tomato paste, mineral oil, and vinegar. And while all my friends are out partying with my wife, I'm in my hotel room bathtub with Brillo pads and mineral oil and vinegar and tomato paste, trying to get all this shit off my skin. And I didn't like my eyes, and like I still looked absolutely ridiculous. But they let me fly. So then they called me Snooki from Jersey Shore. So that's how I got that one. Yeah. Super long story. So you got to be careful when you ask me a story, but yeah.
Oh, so moving in a little further in, what was it like the first time you landed on a carrier? What was going through your head past just hitting the numbers?
Oh man. So I was in the T-45. And the weird thing is like you land on the carrier for the first time solo. So like you've done thousands of passes, bounces on land. When you land on the carrier for the first time, your lead, who's an instructor, brings you out over the deck of the carrier, but you're by yourself. And you have an LSO on the deck, obviously. But I remember I flew over the carrier for the first time, and I looked down and I saw it, and I just got chills. I mean, I was like, "This is fucking awesome." And I'm also terrified. Like I had to land on that, and just seeing that $11 billion asset moving through the ocean that I was going to get to land on was so cool. But I was just overcome by just absolute fear, and it was so hard to compartmentalize and focus. And um, yeah, it's a high stakes game, and it's really mental. And I got the job done. I wasn't pretty. I threw some ugly passes, but I threw some good enough passes. And the second day, I did good enough, and that's all you want to do when you carrier qualify is just meet the bar. Um, But man, what an awe-inspiring, yeah, experience. It was terrifying. Yeah. Yeah. And that was just during the day. So I didn't get to do it at night until the growler a couple years later. But
Well, what was that like? Doing the first night landing.
just I got a background now in I was a head instructor for carrier landing. So I've got a pretty deep background in that field, and it's ridiculous that we do that. It is so it's not dangerous, it's safe, but it's just when you're doing it, you feel like this is stupid. What the hell am I doing out here? It's
I
night and the
imagine
deck's pitching.
dangerous is still acceptable. It's just risk management is everything you can manage out of the risk you do. But
Well said. Absolutely well said. Yeah, it's safe the way we do it, but it's just pitch black out there, and it's just crazy. I mean, we're the only country in the world that lands at night on carriers,
yeah.
So it's terrifying. You trust what you see, the meatball and your instruments and everything like that, but you know that um, literally right before that runway is a wall of 11-inch steel that if you hit that too low, you die. I mean, it's not, we don't worry about landing a little long and going around. I mean, that's boltering's no big deal at all. It's not. It happens to all of us. I mean, every 8 passes or so, I think, is the average bolter rate. We miss a wire. So we're used to that. But it's getting low and being underpowered. And that's what kills everybody. Is hitting the front of the boat, or the back of the boat, rather.
Understood.
So, yeah.
What can you tell us about some of your combat deployments? What'd you find interesting, fun, and what was the most unexpected thing about it once you got into it?
Yeah, combat. Um, yeah, so most of my time was in Afghanistan. So we would launch off the carrier in the Gulf of Oman, and we'd fly up what was called the Boulevard, which is the piece of negotiated real estate between Iran and Pakistan.
Mhm.
And we had like an hour flight up the Boulevard to where we get into Afghanistan, and then we tank, and then we do all of our mission stuff. So we tank every hour. So they were brutal missions. I mean, like 7.7 hours long. And a lot of times, when they needed us, they would extend us in country too. So I mean, we would have some missions where we're in that seat for almost 10 hours, which is just
Oh,
brutal. Um, just exhausting, and then after that, it's can be the hardest part, right? Which is flying back to Boulevard and landing on the boat, almost always at night. So yeah, mission wise, we did a lot of good stuff, man. We in a nutshell, denied the electromagnetic spectrum from people that were trying to use it to exploit our guys. So that
mhm.
could be radios. By the time I got there, the air defenses of Afghanistan were already, there was
Gone.
nothing really left.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was nothing really there to begin with. But we were doing work every day because that's how those terrorists, they all communicate using cell phones or satellite radios, all that kind of stuff. Also, counter IED stuff. A lot of those IEDs are set off with the electromagnetic spectrum, so we did a lot of stuff with that. Um, and then, a lot of times too, like a few times, um, even not in Afghanistan, you're in the Persian Gulf or whatever, and Iran wants to send some of their planes towards the carrier to make a ruckus, so we'd have to intercept those, um, and scare those guys away. So yeah, I mean that's mostly kind of what we did, and supporting what they call TICs, which is a troops in contact in Afghanistan.
Mhm.
So we get a call. Hey, these Marines are engaged in a firefight. They were ambushed or what have you. So we would grab some gas if we needed it, or just buster over there, as fast as we could get there, and then just try to suppress whatever communication devices the enemies were using. Um, and we also are with that airplane are able to geolocate signals. So if we know that a bad guy is over, we see a signal from a bad guy, we can get an exact latitude and longitude on that, and employ on that coordinate too, or point other sensors over there, see what's going on, and then employ into that. So yeah, that's kind of in Afghanistan, in an environment where there's no surface to air threat
Mhm.
really, other than IR weapons do that. All this shows a force, which is basically
Mhm.
doing a flyby down low just to scare bad guys off. So
And a lot of times that would end an engagement for us too. It was almost as effective as a weapon. Weapons deployed were more fun, but
yeah, oh yeah, always, man, always, yeah, yeah. It works, right? I mean, whatever stops them from doing what they're trying to do.
yep.
Yeah.
Uh, what was the most unexpected part of your combat deployments? Like when you're going around, what was like, man, this wasn't what I was thinking of.
Yeah. I remember one time we got called to support an outpost that had been ambushed by hundreds of um, bad guys, and there were several good guy casualties during that. But I mean, we were expecting a fairly dull day. I mean, Afghanistan was being drawn down, so what we were primarily doing was supporting exfiltrations of various outposts and things like that, and a lot of special forces stuff. And um, that was very unexpected, very chaotic. We were just kind of relaxed, doing our thing, waiting for stuff. And then we got called over, and it was a very coordinated attack on this U.S. outpost. And we were able to bait, but when we got there, we were able to completely turn it around because we were able to completely stop them from coordinating with each other. And then the guys on the ground, guys like you, were with those guys not being coordinated anymore, just got their asses kicked.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most intense experience that I'd had over there. Yeah.
I can imagine, being up there and seeing things unfold and not necessarily being able to directly do anything could be sobering as well, past what you were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Whenever there, that is always our job. We aren't the center of attention or the center of the show. We are all airborne assets are there for one purpose, and that's to support and defend the folks on the ground. So we would serve you guys, and every mission that I did, I always started off with a phone call to whoever was running things on the ground over there, just to see what they needed, if they needed me to bring anything special on my airplane, for what they might face that day, and basically how can I serve them or make their day better, that kind of thing. So
Okay.
Yep.
And along that side, were there any times where you worked with foreign national or allied forces, either in combat or in training, and any interesting stories there?
Oh yeah, man. I trained. So the Australians have growlers and Super Hornets. I trained a lot of Australians. I trained. So the Royal Air Force would do cross exchange tours with us sometimes. So I would work with the Brits. I've worked with the French before, and then over in theater, absolutely. We would be hanging out with tornadoes, and I mean all sorts of foreign assets over there, and it's a lot of fun, to be on the same team as other guys and doing the same mission.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sorry, I got a list here.
You're good, man.
What was your favorite port of call? Getting off the boat, foreign country.
Man, the whole join the Navy, see the world thing did not really play out for me. That brochure was full of shit. So the airplane the variant of the Super Hornet that I flew had the APG-79. This is the most advanced radar out there. And as a result, we were really restricted on where we could land. But on the carrier, the time that I deployed was kind of a crappy time because we were really restricted in our ports, and some guys in previous deployments had done stuff stupid regarding alcohol. So we were very restricted. I mean, we pulled in places, but we didn't really get to see a lot. We saw Dubai and Bahrain a lot. And
okay.
When I flew the C-40 though, I got to finally see the world. And probably the coolest place I'd ever been in my entire life was Wake Island is probably number one out in the Pacific, right? Because it's just DoD, and it's such a storied place. I won't bore you, but yeah, you go on Wikipedia and look up Wake Island, and what happened there in World War II is just mind blowing. So we got to go to Wake Island, and I mean the crazy thing about Wake Island is because there's been no civilians there. You can walk around the island and go on a hike and go in the woods, and you're going to find all sorts of stuff. I mean, you're going to find expended ammunition. You're going to find you'll find bayonets. You'll find, I mean, just in the wood, like under the brush, because it's been, 80 years, but there hasn't been a civilian population there to pick that island apart. So it's very fascinating, historical place. I mean, you fly over the whole Pacific to get there, and it's just this beautiful island with such a story and a history. And check out, for those of you guys that haven't, check out the Wikipedia on that, what happened to the contractors during World War II, and then what happened to the Marines and what the Japanese did. And there's some wild stories about that. But and Owodo as well, which is the island where Iwo Jima is, was pretty cool.
Cool. So, that's neat.
Yeah.
Um, so you said you served as a standards evaluation pilot, tactics instructor, and LSO. As a standards and evaluation pilot, what does that entail? What did you do? What were some of your experiences with that?
Sure. So yeah, just a brief overview. So there's multiple qualification levels, and that's the thing that teases you about like you think when you're qualified to fly a Super Hornet or a Hornet or whatever, like when you graduate the RAG, which is the Fleet Replacement Squadron, a lot of people before they begin naval aviation training, they're like, I'm a qualified, once I get to that point, I'm a qualified Super Hornet pilot. Life's going to be good. No, that's when life just starts. Uh, at that point, you are, even when you graduate the RAG, which is probably 5 years into your training, you're just a wingman. You are there to be a wingman and to be a follower. From there, it takes another year or two to earn your section lead qual, which is now you can lead a wingman. Now, if you go out as a section, which is 2 airplanes, you can manage yourself, you can manage the battle space, and you can manage your wingman. So that's wingman. So level 1 is when you're in the RAG, which is where you're learning how to fly the Super Hornet. Level 2 is you're a qualified wingman. Level 3 is you're a qualified section lead. Level 4 is you're a qualified division lead. So now you can go out and lead 3 other airplanes. So now you're a lead. You have a wingman, and then there's another section that you're also in charge of. So you have to manage the battle space. You have to manage your airplane that you're flying, your wingman's airplane. You got to make sure he's good. You got to keep track of how many bombs, missiles, how much fuel he has, and 2 other airplanes. And you have to know how to prosecute the fight tactically and manage 4 airplanes simultaneously while you're flying yours. So that's level 4, and then level 5 is like strike lead. So that is when the carrier launches all of its airplanes, and you are managing the entire battle. Everybody, every single airplane that just launched off, like a whole strike going into a country, day 1, you can manage that whole thing. So that's kind of all the levels. I wasn't level 5. I was a level 4, but when I was an instructor in the RAG, so I taught students, brand new students that were just learning how to fly the Growler. But as a level 4, I also taught instructors that had done their sea tours and came back. So just to make sure that they were at the right level to be able to teach. So I was kind of like the teacher of the teachers, if you will. Um, so yeah, it was great. That was probably my favorite thing that I ever did was teach people, and my favorite thing was to help students that were struggling, help them understand concepts, or I was kind of the guy that if a student failed a flight, they'd send me up with them to try to get them on the right track and to try to help them succeed. So by far my favorite gig that I ever did.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then, just following on, I'm just kind of rolling down the list here. What do tactics instructors do, and what are some of your experiences as one?
Yeah, so I instructed tactics at the RAG and in my squadron. So you're just it's your job to just So the Top Gun, which you guys have all heard of, is like the tactics school for the Navy. For Growlers, it's called GTI, Growlers Tactics, which is like it's equivalent to Top Gun. It's just that for the Growlers. So they actually have the same air-to-air dogfighting syllabus. So I didn't graduate those. I didn't go to those schools, but I was in charge of teaching tactics at the RAG. So
Okay.
I had a guy that had graduated, those programs that I'd worked with. So we trained together, and you got to be a certain level proficient to teach tactics. But basically, just keeping up on the tactics because they change all the time. Top Gun and GTI create the tactics. So those guys, they not only teach them, but they develop new tactics. So every month or so, another thing comes out from there saying, "Hey, we're going to change this because this is better." And then you have to study it, make sure you're doing it right. Usually by flying with someone that graduated there, and then teach it. So that's basically it.
And then you mentioned you were a LSO. What were some of the most common things you saw people do right, and what was some of the most common things you do wrong? I know all these guys struggle with carrier landings in the sim. So
Yeah, it's carrier landings have changed since I got out of the Navy. They're significantly easier due to the advances of something called Magic Carpet, which is a software upgrade for Super Hornets, if that rings a bell. But um, I think the biggest thing that we all did wrong landing on carriers, or we all, it's a trap that we're all apt to fall into, is just getting into our heads because you you so just to paint the picture, you got, like I said, $11 billion asset steaming through the ocean with 5,000 sailors on board. And you come back from a combat mission and you're last in the stack to go down the chute. So you're last to get on the boat. So the entire aircraft carrier is waiting to turn around in restricted sea space until you can get aboard. You've also got 5,000 sailors that are waiting to go to sleep. It's a 12-hour duty day. So we're all up at the same time. You got the admiral that's watching the plat cam from his room, and then you've got this place called Catsy on the boat, which it looks just like the movies. It's a dark room with shit tons of monitors all over and radar scopes, and it's blue and it's dark. And you got all the COs of all the squadrons and the commander of the battle group sitting in there, CAG, and they are all watching you, waiting so they can go to bed. And you come down the chute at night and you bolt her. So you miss the wire. Now you're like, shit. Now all these people are like, oh, there goes Snooki again. Like he didn't get on, and guess we're going to be up for another 15 minutes while he circles back around. And then I'm sitting here in my airplane, damn it, in my backseater, I'm letting him down. He's ready for a hot shower and some chow. And then, now I'm like, I got to get on this time. I got to get, because you bolt her twice. Now, even the people that aren't paying attention are like, hey, come over here, man. Like, look, Snooki, you bolt her a second time. Snooki, can you believe that shit? All this stuff. So you miss a second time. But now you're low on gas. Now you don't have enough gas for a third pass. So then there's a guy that's sitting on Cat 1, a Super Hornet. It's a tanker. He's got 5 web. He's got 5 fuel tanks. And he's called the Titler, which is a funny name, but it stands for Turning Tanker Last Recovery, TTLR. So now your buddy that really didn't want to go flying tonight, he just wanted to watch movies and relax. Now he's got to go flying at night and land on the boat at night because you missed twice. So now they launch him off. And now he gives you gas. And because, he's having a great night, he comes back around and he lands. And then you come around again and you're like, holy shit, do I have to get this right? I'm missing 3 times, So it's just really easy to get in your head. Really easy, man. And so being able to just breathe and compartmentalize and not worry about any of that is a huge skill set.
Understood.
Yeah, biggest mistake. And I guess doing things right, is the opposite of that. It's just forgetting about everything and just focusing on what you got to do. Yeah.
Understood.
Yep.
So you said you're now commanding a unit. How did all of your previous experiences and duties sort of shape your leadership style?
Yeah, well, the unit that I'm in charge of now isn't a combat unit; it's an inactive reserve unit. So it is compared to a squadron, it's nothing. But the Navy does a good job of. It's frustrating because it's frustrating and it's cool at the same time. Like Air Force pilots, they have one job, and that's to fly the airplane. They're not maintenance officers or ops officers or admin officers, or they're not in charge of the wash. They're not in charge of everything. So Air Force pilots are extremely specialized in flying. That can make them very elite aviators. That's a really cool thing. But naval aviators, we do everything. So we're flying an airplane, plus we're in charge of 100 sailors in a maintenance division. And we got to stay up on tactics, and we got to stay up on everything. So I would say, in general, the Navy makes better officers. The Air Force can make better pilots. So it's pretty humbling when you fly against, an equivalent Air Force guy. They're really, really good. I'm not going to say they're better than us because that'd be ridiculous, and I get my ass kicked for saying that. And they don't have to land on aircraft carriers. Let's be realistic. So the bar isn't higher for them; it's higher for us. But it's just some differences. So